for this. We had set aside time today as a post-release webinar, but as you know, that the release got pushed a little bit, but we still felt it was really important for us to meet with you and share a little bit more details related to the fiscal year Medicaid insurance denials. And I know that a communication was sent out, but we do want to go through it, and I am going to rely heavily on Amanda to help kind of give that overview and insight related to the denials and how the different scenarios and the system is working. Hold on one second while I see what I see on my screen. Jennifer from Strive. Thank you, Jennifer, for letting us know who our A4 is there. Perfect. Okay. Just not sure why I'm not seeing this. Okay, if somebody could confirm that you see my PowerPoint, I'm going to try not to drag my mouse around. And okay, I guess I need to at least look at the chat to know if you're responding that way. We see your PowerPoint. Beautiful. Okay, so again, we're going to go over a little bit related to the billing fixes. Amanda, I want to make sure that we're in agreement here that you're going to help with kind of sharing a little bit more of the details related to the Medicaid insurance denials.
You can just turn, anytime you need to turn it over to me, I can explain.
Okay, wonderful. And I did put a slide in here, if I can get my thing to work. I just put in here the summary. We went over this last week, and just a reminder that this was recorded if you missed it and you want to kind of go a little bit more of an overview, walking through a demo in the portal, or in the Salesforce rather, and how the provider portal works. That is saved on our EI Colorado website, and I can send out, I forget exactly how it's titled, but many of them are titled the same way as far as Unicorn Lightning webinar and the date and any specific topic related to that webinar. But this is a basic overview of what we went over last week. So the new allocation, I just took a snippet out of the communication just to explain what the new allocation is that is set up for previous fiscal year activities. So Amanda, if you want to give a kind of more summarized version of what that is, that would be great.
As it relates to the new allocation, or just overall?
Yeah, just
sure. Yep. So if everyone remembers last year, we had a workaround to allow for billing previous fiscal year sessions in which you received a denial from Medicaid or insurance that crossed the fiscal year, that July 1 date. So it would have been a session date that was before, so last fiscal year, and that would have been, we were doing 17-18. And you had not received the denial yet in that same fiscal year to be able to bill CDHS. Oh, everyone can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I've had too many calls this week where I've been on mute. So yeah, what we did this year is part of our billing enhancement, we included this billing fix so that it wasn't just this workaround of trying to make the system work for billing for previous fiscal year dates. Because remember, our allocations, the way they're set up in Unicorn is to not allow previous fiscal year billing. We cut off that billing to align with fiscal accounting for previous fiscal year activity session dates. So this year, what we're doing is we're creating a new allocation, and it's basically a bucket that will keep any previous fiscal year credits and previous fiscal year dates. So rather than attaching to a current fiscal year 1920 allocation, anything billed for Medicaid, insurance, or trust denials, and I'll explain that a little bit more, is going to bucket into this one allocation. And we'll be able to use that allocation to determine a direct service payment amount to include with the current fiscal year 1920 allocations and budget amounts. And we'll include that with our direct service payments in November. So last year, we had a shorter date range and we kept expanding it, if you recall. So this year, we are allowing to bill for previous fiscal year with denials from Medicaid, insurance, or trust that cross that fiscal year 7/1 or in the future date through October 31st. And so that was similar to what we did last year. What that means is as long as you have those activities in a status of ready for invoicing, by October 31st, they will run with the November 3rd invoicing batch to be paid with that month's direct service payments.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for explaining that. And then moving into, and this is basically all included in the communication. I did go through and pull in a few of the screenshots so they were a little more clear for the PowerPoint related to Medicaid denials. And this is just one of the scenarios that were spelled out and explained in that communication. When billing for additional units in which an activity was invoiced in the fiscal year 1819 with 1 unit of service, and then of course the denial came later and the remaining units that were denied previously would then need to be billed. So Amanda, how do you want me to run through these? Do you want to just explain as I go through the different slides? Anything additional to what you have?
Sure, I can do that, and then I can just let you know when to move the slide ahead.
That'd be great.
Okay. So remember last year we had 3 different scenarios. You're going to see the same scenarios. So this first one is if you are billing for an activity date of session that's prior to 7/1, so it's in the last fiscal year in which you billed 1 unit to CDHS, because the system does allow you to do that, and now you've received that denial in the fiscal year 1920, so July 1 or later through October 31st. And you need to enter in those additional units. We no longer have a field. So last year we had a field that was called additional units. We have built in some workflows, some trigger or validations that will allow you to create a second activity on a utilization of the same day if you have billed 1 unit of service already. And remember, these are specific for Medicaid. Denials is specific to speech OT PT, so you'll see that in there. So Medicaid denials A, you're going to look for the utilization with the date of session that's in the previous fiscal year that you billed 1 unit of service. So this is just showing that you need to find that utilization. And if you go to the next screen, and you're just going to confirm that this is on 1/10/2018, this is the utilization in which I billed an activity that had 1 unit. That's what this one's showing. And then you're going to find that activity. Oh, is this mislabeled? I might have highlighted that might not be the right screenshots.
Did I do that backwards?
I think so.
Let's go back.
And if we don't have the screenshot, I think that might be okay too. It's just indicating that you need to make sure that that 1 unit was billed. You'll see that on the utilization, and you'll be creating a new activity to bill for the additional units. So it's similar to what you had done in the past, but this way it's just going to attach to the new allocation.
So this would be where the direct service is then selected.
Yeah, I think it might just be, it was just highlighted wrong on the previous, so we can go ahead and keep moving forward with that. The second activity that where you see one unit, so let's ignore that the 3 is there for the purposes of just talking it through. So you'll see that you have one unit already. So if you just want to go back to the PowerPoint, Kelly, I'll just keep talking through it.
Okay, so you're saying, and
Yeah,
you're saying I put 3 in and that should have been 1.
Nope, you're right. So the direct service that you'll put in is for the 3 on that same date. So it's a new activity. You just need to ensure that you're putting that, you're checking the Medicaid denial checkbox. So you've received that Medicaid denial. You can put an additional description if you have other information that your CCB is capturing, and then that date of denial needs to be entered, and it has to be, there is a validation it will trigger between 7/1 of the new fiscal year and October 31st. So 7/1 2019 through October 31st, 2019. So then, then you'll go ahead and save that activity. And you're going to want to review just to confirm that the allocation, this is just for testing purposes, so we selected RMHS just out of a hat. So you'll see that it has test direct session backlog. Now, this was just for testing purposes. I will create a new allocation for this backlog, but we're calling it credits and denials. So anything that is billed for previous year in alignment with the instructions that will be sent out to you with all of the scenarios and screenshots. I'll be probably naming it whatever the name of your CCB is, previous fiscal year 18-19 credits and denials. So that's just to confirm that it does go to this new allocation. And you, so by October 31st, you must have these activities in a status of ready for invoicing. Any activity that's created after October 31st, we will be requesting that you delete those activities. They will not run with invoicing on November 3rd. Oh, and if you can go back just to the one screen before. Just wanting to note, it's really important that you are remembering these dates. The system should not let you create activities that do not have a denial date between 7/1/2019 and 10/31/2019, and know that they will run with invoicing. I will create a new report. This hasn't been created yet because we are still doing this in staging, and you will not see these allocations until we start entering July service dates as of August 3rd. So you will not be able to enter any new activities until August 3rd. And as long as you have these activities in a status of ready for invoicing by 10/31, they will run with the November 3rd invoicing batch. And you'll have a report to reference for all of these activities. And we'll include those along with the fiscal year 19/20 November direct service payments.
Next slide.
Yeah, do you want me to wait until the end for questions or questions specific to the scenario?
That might be a good idea. Let me just escape out for a second. Okay, we can see your PowerPoint. If anybody would like to enter a question specific to what we just went over in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask a question, please do so. And if not, we'll plug on through to the next scenario.
And then while Kelly's bringing up the PowerPoint, just to let everyone, I apologize that it's dry and talking at you all these new things. The reason we're not demoing actively in our staging environment is we do have that validation on October 31st, and we're testing with previous fiscal years. So in order, I'm not able to demo because I'm putting in that October 31st date of the last fiscal year. But all of the screenshots will be available in these instructions that we're sending out. And then we will have another webinar once this is in production, because we'll have enough time before you start to utilize these new the new functionality, because you're not entering those activities until after those allocations are made, as of after the August 3rd billing run. And then I will go ahead and address the question in the chat while, Kelly, we're still not able to see your PowerPoint.
Okay, I saw the chat pop up, so I waited, but I'll go ahead and pull it back up while you answer. Do you want to read the question then, since you
Yep, I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
If we were to enter an activity, Medicaid denial, let's say in August for the previous fiscal year, would the process on September 3rd, or would it be held until 11/3? So let me make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. You're entering an activity, what's the session date? For a session date of August? Okay, I like May 1st as an example. Yeah, so any session date that is previous fiscal year, if you do not receive a denial until after July 1st, it's going to be that your activity is held. Remember that one, if it was billed to Medicaid, you only be billing for that one unit potentially. And as long as your denial is after July 1st, you would be able to enter those additional units and following the Medicaid denial instructions.
Did that answer your question, Sherry and Kelly? Yes, okay.
Okay, great.
All right, so now let's move back over here. Share. Okay, I think we're back to where we were now.
Okay, so the second scenario, and this should feel familiar to last year, where we had a second Medicaid denial scenario in which I think there were multiple CCBs that reached out and communicated that there is an instance that you have billed Medicaid and are waiting for that denial, but you may have not either received it or you never billed any units to CDHS to be paid with EI funds. So the second scenario is a Medicaid denial. So you're billing for a service date for the prior fiscal year, so prior to 7/1/2019, in which units were billed and denied by Medicaid after 6/30. So if you've received that denial as of July 1 or later through October 31st, and you never created nor invoiced any units in the EI data system. So this would be just like you would be navigating to a service plan element, and you're going to create a utilization and activity. So these screenshots are just reminding you to find the last, or at least find the IFSP in which those session dates fall. And it's likely that that IFSP with the attached service plan element will be potentially archived or closed depending on how far back you're billing. So you're going to navigate to the service plan element that you need to create that utilization. And you're just confirming that it's that session date falls within those IFSP dates. And then you're going to create a new session and enter that last fiscal year's date, and then navigate to the utilization however you're doing that now. Maybe you're clicking on the quick link. That's what I included in the screenshot that pops up when you create that utilization. And you're going to create a new direct service activity with that session date in the last fiscal year that was billed to Medicaid last fiscal year, in which the denial was received on or after 7/1. So that's just, you're just going to create an activity following the existing instructions, entering the time in units, the hourly rate, and ensuring that the Medicaid denial checkbox is checked. You can add an optional description, and then ensuring that you include the denial date, which would be between 7/1 and 10/31 of 2019. And save that activity. Again, this activity, you're just confirming that everything is accurate, making sure that you have checked the checkboxes. It shouldn't allow you to save the activity without it, without the Medicaid denial checkbox and the denial date, and then confirming again that the allocation is that new backlog, which we're now going to be calling previous fiscal year credits and denials. And then making sure that you update that status to ready for invoicing. However, your CCB is handling updating activity statuses. You can do that at the same time of all of the other activities in a list view. You can do it as you're creating the activity, whatever works best. And then again, as long as the activity is in a status of ready for invoicing for the November 3rd invoicing batch, they will be included. They will be changed to a status of invoiced, and they will be attached to that new credit denial allocation, which you'll be able to see those on that report to be paid with the November 3rd or with the November direct service payments.
Okay, and I apologize that I did not have the next section pulled into slides because I just didn't have the time with the creation of that. But if we want to take any questions related to scenario 2, first, and then we can look at other insurance denials, perhaps using just the Word document. So related to the second scenario that we just went over with Medicaid billing, are there any questions? Okay, are you okay with looking at the screenshots for insurance denials on a Word document? Amanda?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Is that okay?
I thought that was
okay. I wanted to make sure. Sorry, because I didn't get those pulled in. All right, so find it. And you can just tell me when to scroll or not scroll or stop.
Okay, so the third scenario that we have, so we had Medicaid A, Medicaid B. You'll see that in the instructions to align with all of the screenshots. We have insurance denials. So these are billing for service dates in the last fiscal year in which units you billed and were denied by insurance. So we know we don't have any specific validations in the system right now for insurance denials. So it's likely that you have not entered any activities or units of service into the EI data system. So this scenario would be similar to this last one, where you're going to find that IFSP, the service plan element in which you need to create a new utilization for a date that you have not billed, because this is something you billed to insurance and they had since denied as of 7/1 through October 31st. And you're going to create the new utilization, create the activity, just as you do with all activities, making sure in this scenario that you're going to check the insurance denial checkbox. So remember, there's a separate insurance denial checkbox, so you'll check that. You'll use the Medicaid insurance denial date to enter that.
Sorry, guys. I tried to zoom in and it put me back up to the top.
Okay, so yeah, check if you can keep going down, checking the insurance denial checkbox, entering that date, and again, it will attach to that new allocation. So anything that's previous fiscal year, it's going to all bucket into this previous fiscal year allocation. The reason for this is we do not want it because we're closing our fiscal books. We want to be able to use previous fiscal year data and not associate it with any of the session dates for fiscal year 1920. So yep, it'll be that new credit denial or allocation. Confirm everything is correct. All fields on your activity. Update the status to ready for invoicing to again be included in the November 3rd invoicing batch. So that one's pretty straightforward. And the last scenario should be similar as well. We did not include trust denial specifically last year in our instructions, but we have heard feedback that you may get a denial in the same way that once you've submitted something for payment, let's say for a June session date that runs through invoicing, and then you get new information from the Early Intervention Services Trust has not paid for that activity. So we are allowing the same thing with trust denials. So information that you receive, we know that there may not be an official document that's sent, but distinct information that the trust will not be paying for an activity that you did bill to the trust. So what you'll do in this scenario, so the same situation that you're billing for an activity with a session date in the previous fiscal year, and that units, you can stay at the top there. Thank you. Were invoiced, so they were invoiced fiscal year 18-19 and denied by the trust after 6:30, so 7/1 between then and 10/31. So in this scenario, you're actually going to navigate to a client case for a child you invoice units of service that is paid by trust, yes, with the previous year session date, and you're going to credit the trust activity before you create a new service activity to bill to CDHS. So you're going to locate that utilization with an activity date of session that you need to credit, and you're going to click on the utilization, find that activity, and now you can scroll down. So here we have, okay, this is I billed 4 units. This is the right activity that I need to credit. So however you grab that, either copy the activity ID here, click on the activity, memorize it, but you'll need to copy the activity to then click on activity to credit on the utilization. So this is all things that you already are doing. So click the credit activity, enter the activity ID, the number, keep scrolling down. You can put an optional description for the credit, and you're going to save that activity. And we'll have the rest of these screenshots for you. So once you save that credit, it will apply to that utilization. And then the steps after you've credited that activity, you will see that credit also goes to the credit and denial allocation. Because this is something, again, we're crediting, but we are crediting to a previous fiscal year. It's not going to show that it goes back to the same allocation like it does if you were to credit a session within the same fiscal year. So the credit is going to apply to that credit denial allocation. And then from that same utilization, you're going to create a new direct service activity following the steps that we did in the insurance denials scenario. So it's going to be a new direct service activity with that same session date. The system should allow you to create the second or this utilization even though one already existed. So we have put in there is a workflow that should allow you to do this and save the new activity. And you're going to use a trust denial checkbox and entering the data denial that you received information that the EISD is denying that payment. So whatever documentation you have to support that is completely fine. We're not asking for that documentation, just that you enter that date. And again, that date should fall between 7/1 and 10/31 of the new fiscal year. And you're going to save that activity, and that will also attach to that new previous fiscal year credit denial allocation. and we'll run with the November 3rd invoicing. And that should cover all of our scenarios.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for the detailed explanation. And I want to again see if anybody has any questions related to the latter scenarios that we just went through. If so, please post in the chat, or you may unmute yourselves if you choose and audibly share your question.
Let's see, question to the group. Can we continue to bill in Classic at this time into next fiscal year? Yes.
Oh, shoot, sorry.
If there are any questions coming in, I'll just reiterate, and you'll see this in the instructions, that please do not, you can only create activities after the new allocations are created. So this is the same thing that's happened every other fiscal year, that we need the June invoicing to run before you start entering any activity. So as of at least the August 3rd invoicing batch, no new activities for the fiscal year can be entered in the system until the allocations are created. So I intend to create those on August 3rd, and hopeful it's not on a weekend, but I'll get those allocations created, and you will be able to enter those once the allocations for the new fiscal year 1920 are created, as well as this new prior fiscal year credit denial allocation.
Okay. And sorry to say, Amanda, but August 3rd is on a Saturday.
Oh, yay.
Okay, and then I wanted to also mention that our delayed release, we're looking at, we don't have a definitive day still, but we're looking at that after the holiday, so that second week in July. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Amanda, okay. So I'm just stating that because I know that, like I said, we were planning this particular webinar to be a post-release. So I look forward to then, once we have a little bit more clarity regarding our release date, I will send out a communication to everybody, and we'll plan an actual post-release webinar to go through the billing enhancement features again and be able to demo more fully what those features are, and then any experience that you may have as you utilize the new features, go through questions and answers. So I just did want to give a heads up that that will come, and I unfortunately don't have an exact date yet, but once I have more clarity regarding the release, then we will for sure communicate the date for that webinar. And as always, it will be recorded, so if you cannot attend, we'll make sure that you're able to view it.
Hi, Kelly and Amanda. This is Monty. Can you guys hear me? Hi.
We hear
you. There's a question. Actually, Jennifer Cutts accidentally sent it to me privately, so I'm going to read it out loud if that's okay. But
Sure.
There was one more question. When part 2 of the enhancement comes out in the area where the providers add their units for billing, will there be a place to enter their notes as well?
For this initial release, we have not included an area that they can enter notes. I know our test group has provided feedback throughout our development that that is a need. At this time, we're working specifically just to ensure that the units are able to be created to help minimize just at least the administrative burden of entering activities. But we do have that noted at a future enhancement.
Kellyanna asks if there is a current timeline for when Classic is going away. And no, Kellyanna, we do not have a definitive date for retiring Classic at this point. And we do recognize that it is something that is used as a workaround for more than one thing as we work through any bugs and issues we have to resolve in Lightning. You are certainly welcome. Okay, well, I don't want to take up anybody's time when you have valuable work to do. I also don't want to cut anybody off. If you do have a question that's really pressing, if you would ask it, we would love to help try to answer that now. Otherwise, please continue to submit your issues through FormSite, and also continue communicating through Chatter for those that utilize that feature. And I will be sending out dates and links for future webinars once those are scheduled.
And then before we hang up, I will just put a plug in that I did. I'm sorry it was late. We were working on this, getting this billing fix out for you. That you did receive your third Thursday of the month billing reviews a little bit late. If you have any questions, I did apologize in those emails that if you have reached out with questions or needing some help with some billing fixes, I'm trying to get to those by the end of the week. And thank you to those of you that have looked at the list views and already made corrections. We're trying to catch those ahead of time before invoicing, which I think has been looking really, really good. So thank you for taking the time to review those list views and reports prior to invoicing. And please do not hesitate to reach out and give me a poke if you've already emailed me. I'll do my best to get to it and help you through things to make sure things run through this next invoicing successfully.
Right. All right. Well, thank you everyone again for joining us. Thank you so much, Amanda, for walking through that in detail. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their Thursday afternoon.
Bye-bye.